Hello everybody and welcome to another Doctor Who review. It's time for the last story in the Key to Time season, starring Tom Baker, the 4th Doctor. It's the Armageddon Factor. As always, I have the television companion for the classic series stories. What's the plot synopsis for the Armageddon Factor? The final segment of the Key is traced to the planet Atrios, engaged in a long war with the neighbouring Zeos. The Marshal of Atrios intends a final strike to destroy the Zeons, but the Doctor and Romana discover that Zeos has deserted, and the war is being coordinated by a computer called Mentalis, built by one of the Doctor's old Time Lord Academy friends, Drax. The computer is under control of the Shadow, an agent of the Black Guardian. He and his servants, the Mutes, are inhabiting an unseen third planet positioned between Atrios and Zeos. The Doctor creates a temporary substitute for the final segment from a substance called chronodyne, and uses the key to place a time loop around the ship from which the Marshal is about to launch his strike against Zeos. It transpires that Atrios' Princess Astra is the real 6th segment. The Shadow converts her into the segment, but the Doctor snatches it and escapes to the TARDIS, where he finally completes the key. The White Guardian appears on the scanner screen and congratulates the Doctor. He asks that the key be given over to him, but the Doctor decides that it's too powerful for any one being to control, and orders it to redisperse. Enraged, the Guardian reverts to his true colour, black, and vows that the Doctor shall die for his defiance. In order to shake him off, the Doctor fits a randomizer to the TARDIS's controls. There is now no telling where or when his travels will take him. So, we have the last story of the Key to Time, and it's a 6-parter. Does it justify a 6-parter? Maybe not. I had an impression watching the Armageddon Factor previously that it may not be justified as a good 6-parter. It's okay, it does the job. It does have that kind of double plot line in it, just a little bit. You've got the events focusing on Atrios for the first 3 episodes, and then it moves over to Zeos and the third planet. So there is kind of like 2 main locations that are utilised in this story, but you do get the impression it's kind of... They've tried to figure out how they can put together a story that ties off the season but still makes it a standalone. I don't think it just about does it, but it's not the strongest way of doing it. It kind of leaves me hollow at the end. Don't get me wrong, the last half an hour episode, the last episode is strong enough, but there's a bit padding a bit in between of going between 2 different locations. A typical Doctor Who padding, going from one location to the other and back again, and all that interspersed padding between the 2. It's certainly traditional Doctor Who padding in that respect. It's okay, but you know, it's enjoyable enough. It's a kind of what I'd call a take your brain out to an extent as well with the way it works. But we'll go into the characters, the main cast, and then go through some highlights of what I've seen in the story, and what I like and what I don't like about it in a bit more detail. Let's start off with the 2 leads. Doctor Who, the Doctor, played by Tom Baker. This is definitely the Doctor at his most bohemian and zany, I think. I mean, you've seen elements of this in Tom Baker's story throughout the 16th season of Doctor Who as the character, and it continues here. Tom is zany. He's got the intelligent streaks that you know from him. I think his relationship with Romana is a lot warmer than it was at the very beginning, and I think the 2 of them bounce off each other quite well. You do get the sense that the Doctor kind of realises very early on that Astra probably is related to the 6th segment, and possibly is the 6th segment, although the scripting is a little bit inconsistent in regards to what the Doctor's thoughts are about that as the time goes on. But yes, they're certainly showing the intelligence and the worldly or the universe-wiseness that he's got for the universe, especially the confrontation with the Black Guardian in the 6th episode. That's really well played by all involved, and Tom Baker certainly shines as the Doctor in this one. Overall, it's definitely typical Tom Baker of the era. It's a little silly at times, but it's not as silly as some of the other stories in this one. It's got a bit of a serious break to it, and this is the Doctor trying to figure out a serious situation and showing the more serious side of the 4th Doctor than the one we're more used to seeing in this era. Overall, I think Tom does do a good job here. He certainly commands a presence when he's on the screen. That's never an issue with Tom Baker's Doctor, and it certainly isn't one in this. Then you've got Romana, played by Mary Tamm. You do get the sense it is a little bit samey, the way the Romana is being played now, but there's certainly not the naivety of Romana as there was before. There certainly is a bit more of a relaxed relationship with the Doctor, and Mary Tamm has always been good with what she gets. There's no doubt that she can act very strongly when it comes to the material she gets. It's just sometimes the material is maybe not 100% the greatest to go with. She is slightly damsel distressed when she gets taken captive by the Shadow later in the story. It's like, no, Doctor, no, don't do that, don't do that. I'll be brave, I'll suffer, you don't tell the details. And it's kind of like, no, that doesn't quite work for the character. But overall, I mean, I like Romana 1. I do like Romana 1. I think Romana 2 is better. But I like Romana 1 for what she stands for, and the fact that there has been a kind of arc and there has been a growth, but the character, I suppose in some respects, does get a little bit repetitive, but then again, they all do. But there has been growth here. This one is kind of like fruition of the wiseness that she's garnered through the travels with the Doctor over the season, and certainly is the best performance that Mary Tamm has made since Androids of Tara. In fact, I think that's a highlight of the series is Tara, to be fair, for Mary Tamm. But yes, no, I don't mind the character here. I think it works quite well, and I think it's really well played by Mary Tamm overall. And then we got the guest cast. We have the Marshal, played by John Woodvine. I don't know what to make the Marshal, to be fair. He seems like a pompous general, and then he's obviously controlled by the Shadow. It's very clear there's mind control involved in there, but just the way he acts it seems a bit odd. And I don't know whether that's down to the writing or whether that's just the way that Woodvine's decided to play the part, but it doesn't give that strong authority that you want from a despot Marshal. He seems to have a slight weakness there, which doesn't seem to resonate with the way I see the character and the way I think the character should be, based on the circumstances and the situation that's been set up. However, it's engaging enough. I get the impression they kind of ran out what to do with him because he's in the time loop for 2.5 episodes. So I think they ran out what to do with him, to be fair. And it kind of shows the way the character's written for in the story. And I think he's there as a plot device, as a purpose, as an obstacle for the Doctor to overcome, which he does rather smartly, really, at the end of it. It's okay, but it's not a character I really would relate to in this story, really. Then we got Shap, played by David Harries. I think that's how you say it, because it's Davyd, so it might be David, but I think it's probably David. He is the second command of the Atrians. It's played for laughs a little bit by David Harries here, but it is played in a way that endears him to you, because he's kind of like trying to be the fawning second in command to the Marshal. The way it's played, it's kind of oddball character, kind of comedy character who seems a bit pointless without any command or use. But he's endearing with it. The way he plays it makes it an endearing character. And I think maybe the writing is partly helping that a little bit as well. He seems to want somebody to tell him what to do. He doesn't seem to have his own conscience as such, which is a bit of a downside at times. But you know what? It's okay. It's actually pretty solid. Then we've got Merrick, played by Ian Sainor, the love interest of Astra, who's a bit fawning at the beginning. He's supposed to be a doctor in the infirmary area of all these injured Atrians, but he just becomes a kind of lackey, really, just searching for Astra all the time and pining for her, effectively. It's played well enough by Ian Sainor, but there's not really much to the character. The big bad is supposed to be the Shadow, played by William Squire, and it's more a pantomime villain, if I'm more the saying. I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's a nice threat for the Doctor to go against, but it's more a pantomime villain than an actual character that you can get into and actually enjoy the savoury evilness of him. The nice little element about the fact he doesn't like the light, and he can't go into light spaces too much because it burns him, it hurts him. I like that element of it. But overall, he is just the typical big bad. And there's more gravitas from the Black Guardian as the big bad than the Shadow is. The Shadow's kind of... Maybe that's it, because he is a bit of a lackey to an extent. He doesn't come across as the strongest of his own will. He just seems to have a dastardly plan, tries to work through that, and just being a laughing panto villain half the time. And maybe that's the charm, but it doesn't really sit well with me, to be fair. You've then got the Black Guardian, played by Valentine Dow, but this is the first appearance of Valentine Dow as the Black Guardian, and the way he's conniving and tries to scheme about it and tries to trick the Doctor to get the key by posing as the White Guardian is actually really nicely done, and I think it's quite a well put role, and I think they picked probably one of the better castings here. You've got the White Guardian early in the season. He seems a bit pompous and full of himself, but seems good. This Black Guardian is more conniving, is a complete opposite, and Valentine Dow plays a good and has a good go at it, and it actually does work for me, and I think it's actually quite a nice little role. You've then got the two standout guest casts. You've got Drax, played by Barry Jackson. Drax is quite fun. He's a Time Lord buddy from the Doctor's college years. It's the first use of Theta Sigma, and that's used in the series. Theta Sigma comes up a couple more times in the series. Latterly, in the 7th Doctor's era with the Happiness Patrol, review up there. And the fact the Doctor's a bit wary of him, initially going, "Who are you? I don't quite recognise you," and realise it's Drax. And it's nice that they get that little conversation, the explanation about why Drax sounds like a Cockney, and the fact that Drax was actually on Earth for a while and actually picked up the accent. I thought that was quite an interesting way of doing it. But the character itself was kind of rough and ready Cockney, very good technician. Although there's a bit of conversation with him and K9 and the Doctor, which I will go into as a nice little comedy moment. It's a nice little role, and I think it's actually one of the standouts of this. And he's only in two episodes, and it's one of these things. Do you think the character would last longer than 2 episodes? I don't think so. I think he's just there as an extra element to help tie up some loose ends about who created Mentalis and things like that, and he's the person who created Mentalis, and it's interesting how that all works out. The other guest actor, of course, is Lalla Ward as Princess Astra. She is a standout, not because obviously she becomes Romana in season 17, but because she just seems to have this kind of, she has a grasp of how Doctor Who works in regards to the characters, and Astra's quite headstrong. She wants to try and help all the people, and she's got a love affair with Merrick, but she seems to be the glue that puts everything together. And maybe the time of recording this, it's kind of the thinking of this kind of head stateswoman idea is quite prominent in my thinking at the moment, and that gives you a clue of when I recorded this. But it's played straight. She does come across a little damsel distress when she's controlled by the shadow with that little device that she has stuck in her neck, which the Marshal also has. But overall, it's played well, and the bits when she's near the segment, and the fact that she kind of turns her character into something, I don't know what my destiny is, and then when she gets near to the key, she goes, "Oh, I know what my destiny is now." She doesn't have an idea exactly what her destiny is, but it's quite clear. And the idea of Astra being the 6th piece is an interesting concept as well, a bit of a morality tale that's discussed with Romana and the Doctor later on. But Lalla Ward, yeah, she's certainly one of the standout members of the guest cast here, along with Barry Jackson as Drax. So let's have a look at some of the bits of the plot that I quite like, and to have a quick chat about some of the elements I don't like as well. The first episode's a lot of setup of the situation. Astra's put in a radioactive wing of Atreus, and it's then taken away by Transmat. It sets up the idea of this transmitter being secretly hidden and all that, which is interesting. But the first good bits are the bits where the Doctor is feeding into the Marshal's bluster, when the Marshal wants a plan for Atreus to win, because it's made clear that Atreus is on the brink of defeat, and the fact that the Doctor wants to have some sort of peace shielding sort of thing to create peace. The General kind of half goes along with it, thinking it's a good weapon, but the Doctor's kind of thinking, no, you just want peace. And the fact the Doctor's feeding the Marshal's ego is quite interesting. I quite like that element, so that works quite well. The time loop idea is quite nice. The fact they use the chronodyne to create the final piece of the key to time, because obviously it says you can puzzle as this cube, so they to make the piece to make it work, and the whole time loop thing, and that idea of that time loop stretching as time goes on is a great way of using repeated footage. It's a great way of locking some characters out, so you can move the plot line along a different way, and it's a nice use of the sci-fi elements of Doctor Who in this. Mentalis as well is an interesting thing, this computer that's controlling everything, and that battle computer theme comes back in the next story as well, Destiny of the Daleks. But the whole idea of the battle computer idea, and it doesn't think about human lives, it just thinks about the outcome, is interesting. The fact that it becomes a big self-destruct bomb, which is part of the reason why the time loop's put in, is interesting as well. I think that's quite cool. It's all right. It's it's a nice little plot device to get the jeopardy going on. It doesn't do anything for 2 episodes, but it's nice to have that jeopardy there, and the fact it takes that time to try and get the solutions the Doctor and Romana need for it. K9's conversation with Drax and the Doctor's conversation with Drax when they're trying to make that stabilizer, miniaturizer, dimensional stabilizer gun so the Doctor can miniaturize. Not quite clear why it's been used, but it's utilised for interesting effect in the last episode. K9 and the Doctor say it isn't the chrono chips that's wrong, which is what Drax thinks it is, because it's always those chips. But it's an synaptic adhesion as well that's the problem with it. And Drax doesn't believe the Doctor or K9, and then when they finds out that actually they were right, it's a nice little bit of comedy moment there. And there's a few comedy moments in here. There's a bit of banter and sarcasm between the Doctor and Romana earlier on. There's the famous scene near the end where they've got the key to time alter presented, and the Doctor's going about I can do anything with his eyes, and eyes at the top of his head, scaring Romana. The whole back and forth between him and the Black Guardian near the end of the story is also quite fun and good, and there is good elements here, but there is a bit of padding here, and that's probably one of the downsides. It is a bit of padding as much. I mean, it's written by Bob Baker and Dave Martin. It's okay. It's not the Bristol Boys' best. I believe it's their last. They write okay for K9. It is their creation. They've been asked to come in and fill a gap, I think, and they do okay, but it's not the best work from Bob Baker and Dave Martin. They do better work in earlier stories. Three Doctors is a good example of that. But overall, it's okay. The writing's standard enough, but I think they're trying to get a 4-part story into 6, and the padding maybe goes a bit too far. This kind of bouncing between Atrios and the third planet and Zeros and back again, and it just gets to get a bit mundane at times, and I think that's possibly where I was thinking the budget might have caused an issue, but it may not be just the budget, it might be the writing. Design-wise, it's actually okay. I think the effects are actually okay, and actually, in hindsight, I think the Pile of Kroll was the budget-struck one. I think it was pretty obvious from looking at the stuff in that one. But this one is okay. There's a few set-piece scenes, but they're fairly small sets, so obviously they were a little bit tight in budget. And they use a bit of CSO when it comes to the miniaturization bit, which works quite well. Although there's one bit where they zoom in to the Doctor and Drax, and you can see it's CSO because the background doesn't change. You would have thought it'd come in with them, but apart from that, it's not bad. It's fairly well filmed and fairly well directed by Michael Hayes. Not surprised that Michael Hayes is actually pretty strong with direction with stuff he's done, and this is no different. For what he had, the material he had, the money he had, he's actually done a decent job. Then you've got the music by Dudley Simpson. He's using most of his repertoire here. He's using his oboes, he's using his horns, with his kind of heightened tension music he uses. He's using the synths. It's a nice little mix of all the different styles, and it's kind of like Dudley Simpson having his flourishes by the end of the season, saying, let's just have a bit of fun with this music. And it actually does help punctuate some of the more quieter and kind of padded scenes a bit more, and it does help move the plot along a bit. So it's actually not bad from Dudley Simpson here. It's fairly standard Dudley Simpson fare, but it's nice he's actually having a bit of fun with some of the instruments he uses, because, it's nice to hear that sometimes. So overall, it's okay. Take your brain out? Yes. Is it still enjoyable? Would I still watch it again? Yes. It's not as bad as I initially thought. I thought it was the worst of the season. It's not. It's on par with some of the other stories. And overall, the Key to Time seasons isn't too bad. I give this story 3 TARDISes out of 5. Now, before I go into the stats overall, this time I've just got a quick review of the season of the Key to Time. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's an interesting concept trying to have an overarching plot line, which didn't really happen in Doctor Who up to this point, so it's an interesting attempt of it. Some of the stories rely heavily on the Key to Time element. Rebus Operation, Armageddon Factor is 2 of them. Other stories, like the androids of Tara and the Pirate Planet, are very much their own individual things, and the Key to Time is just like a slight plot point in the background. It's interesting how some stories have the strengths of just being standalone are the better ones, and the ones that have a lot of overarching plotline tend to go down a little bit. There is a couple of clunkers, but none that are really bad in this season. And overall, with all the ratings, there's been 4 3 TARDISes out of 5, and 2 3.5 TARDISes out of 5. My favourite of the season is Androids of Tara, followed closely by The Pirate Planet, although I think Andros Tara just tips it for me as the best story of the Keys Time. And overall, the rating for this season is going to be 3 TARDISes out of 5. Okay, let's see how the Armageddon Factor sits in with the rest of the Tom Baker stories I've reviewed so far, and how it fits in with the rest of the stories I've reviewed for the whole of the TV series, new and classic, so far as well. So the Armageddon Factor sits at 3 TARDISes out of 5 alongside Warrior's Gate, the Rebus Operation, the Stones of Blood, and the Power of Kroll. At the top of Tom Baker's era is the Horror of Fang Rock with 4 TARDISes out of 5. Overall, there are still 2 stories with 2.5 TARDISes out of 5, Time Lash and Sleep No More, and at the top are still 6 stories with 4.5 TARDISes out of 5, The Happiness Patrol, Inferno, The Day of the Doctor, The Caves of Androzani, The Tomb of the Cybermen, and Dalek. That's it for this review of the Armageddon Factor. Tell me what you think about the story, leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Leave a comment down below. Do you not like it? Leave a comment down below. And if you like this video, please don't forget to hit that like button and share it. Please share it with the hashtag teamstructor. If you like the channel as a whole, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell so you know when a new video comes out. General rule, a new video every Sunday at 4 PM GMT, but this is Who Month, so there's lots more Doctor Who reviews coming up. The next one is actually going to be Nightmare in Silver, and hopefully you can join me for that. You can go to the Patreon at patreon.com/Deanstructor for as little as £1 or $1 a month. You can help support the channel. That's patreon.com/Deanstructor. But until next time, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you later.